Welcome everybody to the August Sydney Microsoft 365 Meetup. I've got a couple of updates around some interesting things that's happening in Microsoft 365, especially on the back of Build 2020. With our guest speaker for today, welcoming for the first time, Faisal Imam from Telstra Purple. He's going to talk to us about ways in which we can extend the Microsoft search experience. And I think part of that will be trying to understand exactly what Microsoft Search is amidst all the other ways in which you can search and discover content in Office 365. And then if towards the end, and it could be within the hour, we'll complete a Q&A. So feel free to ask as many questions as you like. So in terms of updates to Office 365, just a couple of minutes to talk about some things that you should take note of on your radar. The first is the announcement of Microsoft Lists. So Microsoft Lists is essentially a standalone application, although it can be presented as a tab in Microsoft Teams. And it really builds on this idea that a lot of the work or the content that you work with in Office 365 is list driven. So this feature is currently being rolled out to targeted release customers, and it's due for completion this month. So expect to see it in all other tenants somewhere between September and October this year. The Lists app is accessible via portal.office.com and the Waffle. Naturally, because it's list driven, it's using SharePoint Online behind the scenes, so you will need to be licensed for SharePoint Online in order to be able to use it. So essentially it works by creating lists of things. So you can import lists from Excel, likewise you can export lists to Excel, and it's really giving you that SharePoint list view in a more transferable way. So all of the capabilities like grid views, gallery views, calendars, sorting and filtering, all of its available capabilities in Microsoft Lists. Plus you've got the ability to use things like conditional formatting, as you can see here, to indicate using color the various status of things. This can be sort of standalone on your mobile app, and there are out-of-the-box templates for all sorts of different types of lists like scheduling and things like that. So you'll be able to interact with this using the Power Platform. So you'll get the usual triggers and actions you can use to interact with lists using flows and apps developed using the Power Platform. The interesting thing about this is it obviously has parity with Planner and with Microsoft To Do. So the official view from Microsoft in response to this is that whilst Planner and To Do are purpose built for specific tasks, what you have with Microsoft Lists is a more fluid set of tools that you can build your own solutions using. So we'll see if this takes off, but in the meantime, if it's available in your tenant now, do check it out. The second thing I'd like to talk about just quickly is Teams templates. So this is quite interesting because for some time now, as a consultant, we've been working with organizations looking to sort of package up, if you like, certain Teams builds. Now that could be specific channels, specific content, even integrated apps, and the idea that you can package this up and then use it as a repeatable solution within your organization. So Teams templates was announced at Build 2020, that was back in May. Microsoft have said that they're going to create around 12 predefined templates. So when you create a team, you'll be able to pick from one of these templates. And the way the templates work is you can use a predefined one, or an administrator can actually go and set one up using the Teams admin portal. And during that process, they can decide what channels they want, they can decide what deployed apps they want to include, and there's even an opportunity to stage prescriptive guidance. So when people provision one of these templates, you can provide supporting material for them to get started with the template. So this is currently in development, and they've cited on the roadmap a targeted release date of Q3 2020, and I'm acutely aware that we're in Q3, I believe, calendar year. So there should be more on this within the coming weeks, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's more likely to be at the end of the year. As an aside, there are links in this presentation pack, which I will publish. There's a nice marketing video around each of these features, and there's more on Microsoft's website about each of them, so you can go and read and put that on your leisure. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for today, Faisal Imam from Telstra Purple. Faisal, over to you, mate.
Yeah. Sorry. All right. So I'm working as a development consultant at Telstra Purple. I have been working with SharePoint for a long time now. since the SharePoint Server 2003 days, and since then I have worked with almost all the on-prem versions of SharePoint as well as SharePoint Online and Office 365. I have been involved in all sorts of SharePoint implementations, using SharePoint as an intranet, using it as a collaboration platform, team sites, document management platform, and using it as a content management and publishing platform, building public-facing internet sites, and all sorts of things. I have done a lot of SharePoint migrations recently. A lot of SharePoint on-prem to SharePoint Online migrations as well. I'm basically a developer, and I'm still. I started my career as a developer in 2004, and I still love to develop solutions on SharePoint and talk about it. So I think that's enough about me. Let's look at the agenda for today. First, we'll start off with a quick introduction about what is Microsoft Search and what's the underlying philosophy behind it. And then we will do some real quick demos to show how Microsoft Search experience looks like in Bing.com, Office apps, and Office 365 portal. I won't be spending a lot of time on that because that's not our main topic, but I want to the audience to be aware that what you have at your disposal in the context of Microsoft Search. Following that, we will talk about graph connectors. What are the different connectors available and how can you build your own search connector? And then we will take a look at some of the limitations, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. So Microsoft Search is basically a new search offering from Microsoft. It's an enterprise search platform which enables you to do personalized search across Office 365, Windows, and Bing. Now, let's talk about some of the important bits which I have highlighted in red here. So first thing is it enables you to do a personalized search. So people who are familiar with the modern SharePoint search experience in particular, they already might know it very well that when you go into a search box, before you even start typing, it starts suggesting you items which might be of interest for you. And as you type along, it shows you the documents based on the keywords that you are typing and which are relevant to you at the same time. So these documents could be the documents which you have worked on recently, or you have viewed recently, or the documents which are similar to the documents you have recently viewed, searched, edited, or even the documents which are trending in your organization and relevant to your search. So when you go and look at the search results page, much of the search ranking is also based on how relevant are these search results for you. So me and you, if we are searching in SharePoint using exactly the same search words, search keywords, we may get totally different search results just because it is personalized. Documents which are relevant to you might not be relevant to me, and the same goes the otherwise. Other important point that I just want to emphasize here is that the new Microsoft Search experience lets you search not only in Office 365 portal, but it actually helps you use search from Office apps, Windows, and Bing. All of this offering is a very consistent search experience through everything which is related to Microsoft 365, and we'll look at this in the demos as we go along. Another way Microsoft Search is described is that, and you will see this definition in several places if you just search around, is Microsoft defines Microsoft Search as a cohesive search experience that intelligently helps you find, discover, command, and navigate both inside and outside Office 365, Microsoft 365. Now, Microsoft has actually taken some of the best artificial intelligence capabilities from Bing, plus some deep personalized insights surfaced by Microsoft Graph, and then fused them together in a very smart way in Microsoft Search. So this Microsoft Search platform, we can say, is an amalgamation of the AI capabilities of Bing and insights from Microsoft Graph. we call it a cohesive search experience because through the power of graph, it lets you discover the linkages between a document and people, documents and other documents, and connections between people. It not only lets you find documents using a traditional keyword-based search mechanism, but it also lets you discover documents that are very relevant to you, but you might even not know that they existed. So that there comes the part of discovery. So one more thing that you will notice in the demos is that the search box is now, it also acts as a command bar in the Office client applications. So when you are in Microsoft Word and when you want to reach to a specific formatting option, for example, without digging into the menus and ribbons, you can actually simply write in the command bar in the search box, which appears at the top, and you can go from there. And we are definitely going to look at that in the demos as well. And the last part is navigate. So as you are searching different options in Microsoft client applications, while you are searching, you can directly navigate to them as well. So let's move ahead. I'll talk a little bit about summarize it actually. How is the new Microsoft search experience different from what you already had as a classic search? So before we move on to the demo, I just want to summarize these points. So first point is that the search is now moved to a prominent, consistent place across all the apps you work with every day. So from Outlook to PowerPoint, Excel to Sway, OneNote, Microsoft Teams, Office.com, SharePoint, the search bar will be there in exactly the same place across desktop, mobile, and web. The second point is the personalized search results appear as soon as you click in the search box. You don't have to start typing. Of course, you can start typing, but it actually gives you the search results based on where you are standing, based on the context, what you have selected, for example, in Microsoft Word, and based upon that, it may actually suggest you what are the actions you can perform in that object. The third point is search box itself. As I said, it also acts as a command bar depending upon where we are at the moment and which object is selected. Search box will include results from across your organization. So for example, within Word, you can find not only other Word documents, but also a presentation you might be working on. You can navigate straight to that presentation, or you can choose to incorporate slides from that file directly in your document. And then the same search experience is available in through Bing if you're using Edge browser, or there is an add-in you can use it with Chrome as well if you're using Chrome. So we'll come to that point when we go into the demos. And last, a very important point is I would like to demonstrate it during the demos if we have some time. Is we have a capability to include admin curated results such as bookmarks, abbreviations, frequently asked questions. Definitely, it's very much helpful for someone who is new to the company, who is trying to find out who is who, or where are the different policies around a particular subject, or trying to look around for what an abbreviation means, where this abbreviation is only used in the company and not anywhere else. So let's start the first demo, which here will actually show you how Microsoft Search works in Bing. So I'll just launch my browser, and we'll go to bing.com/business. So I will log in with my Purple account. All right. So as soon as you log in, you'll see it. Since we are logged in with my work account, it actually starts with a kind of help page. It shows you what are the different things you can do with work search. So this is the same Bing search you are used to. In addition to search results from internet, it also shows you search results from Office 365. Now there are some examples given here that we can use maybe. So let's start with this example. If I want to view my profile, I'll just click on it. So there it tells everything about me. So you'll notice in addition to everything else from the regular internet search, it also shows you a few things from Microsoft Search. These are things which are coming from Office 365. And actually, there's a separate work tab. So if you go in there, you can find things which are related to just your work, not anything else from the internet. So you can see this is the same card that you see usually in SharePoint search. It shows you everything about you, your designation, your company, your reporting hierarchy, and your groups, your calendar, and everything is there. Similarly, if you just directly want to look at my calendar, you can search like that, and it shows you what does your calendar look like for today. If you want to search on someone else's calendar, you can do that as well. So this is Can's calendar, for example. If I want to see who is my manager, it just takes you directly into the organization tab. Similarly, if I want to see which groups I belong to, there's no groups here. And if I want to look at someone's documents, Danish is one of my colleagues. If I want to see what Danish has been working on, so I can see all these documents here. If I want to see my documents, it will show you my documents only. That's really helpful if you want to quickly find the documents that you've been working on. Another important thing is, as I mentioned, there's the work tab, and you can go it from here as well. It leads you to into a work tab, and there you can see everything. People, you can search on people, you can search on groups, SharePoint sites, files in your OneDrive or SharePoint, even the conversations in your teams. For example, I've been having a conversation about card sorting exercise with one of my colleagues. If I want to see where was that conversation, I can just go into it, and here we go. I was having a chat with Matt Jensen. There are some private conversations, and there might be some public conversations as well, which are part of a team, for example. As you can see, this is a public conversation as well. So this is really useful if you really don't want to bother going into your SharePoint environment and search in there. If you want to search it directly from Bing, you can do that. That's one part of Microsoft Search, and it's pretty helpful. There's another demo here. We want to show you how Microsoft Search works in Office apps. So I'll very quickly launch Microsoft Word and show you some of the things that you can do through Microsoft Search. All right, so as you will see, this is the same search bar that I was talking about. You will find this search bar exactly in the same place in all Office client applications, in SharePoint, in all the Office 365 portal, everywhere. If you go to Flow, if you go to Power Apps, you go to SharePoint, wherever you go, you will see this exactly the same place. So the idea Microsoft is promoting is that instead of you going to a centralized place to do the search is omnipresent. You can search from wherever you are. And if you take this particular example, in fact, let me open an existing document that might save us some time. Just give me a minute. Yeah, there's an existing document, and if, for example, you want to apply a watermark, but you don't know where the watermark options are actually in these menus and ribbons. So instead of just searching for it in the ribbons one by one, you can simply go in here and say watermark, and you will find all the watermarking options here. So I want to apply a watermark, for example, and let's say it's a draft. So it is as simple as that. So you can search for it and you can navigate to those formatting options directly from this search. Similarly, if you want to remove watermark, you can simply go here and click. It's as simple as that. If you want to print this document, just write print and that's it, really. If you want to, for example, do some formatting related to font, and that's really important. If you can actually select the text and then you will see the options which are relevant to the object that you have selected. In this case, we have selected the text. So if you want to change the text, simple as that. Similarly, if you want to wrap this image in a different way, so if I just search for wrap, you can see there is no results here, but because we are just searching for a general option. But if you just select this image, that establishes the context. And now if you go and search for wrap, now the search knows that you have selected an object, which is a picture, and you have an action available on that picture, which is wrap, and you can actually change the way this wrapping is done. Pretty useful in certain situations where you're not sure where that option is, and the point really is that is the same search experience which you will get consistently everywhere. Another thing I just wanted to mention was that it's not just these formatting options, but actually you can search on documents as well. So for example, if I am, maybe this is not a good example, any document. I don't recall it, but the point is that you will see documents which you have actually recently worked on in here in the search results directly, and you can integrate your uh, search in here, and you can embed documents which are outside and slides or anything which are objects, for example, in another Word document that you are searching, you can embed them from here. I can try to see if there are some other examples. Use example, but yeah, you got my point. Same kind of thing we can do everywhere, not just in Word, but also in PowerPoint and Outlook as well. So, for example, if I go to Outlook, yeah, and I have the same search bar appearing over here. You can search for actions such as you can select an email and basically click reply. Not here, sorry. Select an email, and so basically, yeah, you can see the reply window which is open now. And similarly, you can do all sorts of actions here. For example, if you want to do check your account settings, you can open it like this without going into the file option and looking into where is that option exactly present. So the idea is simple. Microsoft Search helps you not only finding out documents, but also helps you locate the actions in your Office client applications and navigate to them directly. The third demo which I have here is most of you might already be aware of it, is a standard how Microsoft Search works in SharePoint in a modern search experience. So let me open it in a bit. Yeah, so this is the test tenant that I've been using. Yeah. So you'll see the search box is appearing at the same place exactly. And now if you want to search on anything, you can simply put in any keyword or simply put static if you want to search everything. If you go to the organization, you will see all the documents everywhere in Office, not just this particular site. What you see right now here is SharePoint modern search. It's very different from traditional SharePoint Search Center, which is still available, by the way, but that's classic SharePoint. Here, on the other hand, you get the artificial intelligence from Bing and insights from the graph, as I said, to see the recommendations from search engine before you even start typing. So if I just go here, you can see it shows me all the relevant documents and people and sites which are relevant to me that I have been working on. And it shows me the list then there without me actually start typing and giving it any suggestions. So what you see on the top here, they are called search verticals, and most of them will be pretty familiar to you except this last one. And this is a new search vertical I have added. I'm calling it stories, and I'll talk about it a little bit more after in a different demo. But suffice to say that this is a new search vertical, and through Microsoft Search, you can add new verticals and connect them to external data sources. That's really powerful. So I guess you're pretty aware of this search experience already, so I'll not spend a lot of time on that. Let's move on to our main topic, which is how do we extend Microsoft Search to external data sources? So now, one thing that's important to understand is that Microsoft Search helps the user retrieve contents from Microsoft Graph. Now, if you want to make data sitting in any external system to be available in Microsoft Search, you can do that, but you have to make sure that you index that external content and you add it to the Microsoft Graph. And the way we do it is through graph connectors. So here you will see a list of connectors which Microsoft has developed, and they are available out of the box. So we have connectors like Azure SQL, Azure DevOps, FileShare, MediaWiki, ServiceNow, and then there are some more. Other than that, there are literally hundreds of other third-party connectors which you can find in this connectors gallery. There are lots of connectors which are available here. And if these are not fulfilling your requirement, you might find something which is relevant to your external system over here. The idea is very simple, that by default, as you know, Microsoft Search lets you search only within the content which is sitting in Office 365. But if you want to go beyond that, and if you want to search on content, let's say, which is sitting in your customers database or anything like that, you can actually do that by using any of these connectors, or if no such connector is helping you, then you can build your own connector. So yeah, the way we develop these connectors is using Microsoft Search API in Microsoft Graph, and it is still in preview, but it's available. You can experiment with it, and most likely it's going to be GA sometime this year. But you can play around with it. I have actually built some connectors using this API, and this is what we are going to talk about it now, that how do we use Microsoft Search API to create new connectors. This is a high-level overview of the search connectors architecture. You can create your own connectors and register them through Microsoft Graph Connectors API. Just a minute. You can build some new connectors. You can use already existing connectors and then register them using the Microsoft Graph Connectors API in the Admin Center. Once they are registered, you can actually use these connectors to search from any of the client applications using SharePoint Online, using SharePoint in mobile, or any Bing or any other clients, any other Microsoft Search clients. So the main idea is that we want to build connectors which are associated with a specific data source. It could be a on-prem data source, as you can see, or it can be a data source in the cloud. The idea is that we build connectors and we associate that connector with a certain schema which outlines what are the different managed properties which are going to be indexed from the on-prem or on the cloud database, and then we populate those properties in the graph by calling simply the APIs. And those APIs you can call from anywhere. You can call them from the cloud using logic apps or using Azure functions or web jobs or anything like that, or you can actually call them from your on-prem applications. You can simply call them those APIs using Postman, for example, as simple as that. So each connector, one important thing to understand is that each connector, you see, is responsible for indexing the data sources and adding that index item into graph using the search API. And once it becomes part of the graph, you can search it from any of the client applications. Now I will quickly demonstrate how a custom connector works from the end user perspective. I'll just take you through a practical scenario. We have a custom built web application in TelstarPurple where we manage all the case studies and success stories for different projects we have done for different customers. The application is called Story Hub. It's a very simple application which has stories which you can search and filter using keywords and other metadata. Each story appears as a page and it shows some paragraphs of text and some metadata as well. And all this data is practically stored in Azure SQL. So one can think of using the Azure SQL connector rather than building our own connector from the scratch, but due to some reasons we decided to build our own connector this time. As I showed you in the last demo, you could see a search vertical called stories. Now the same search vertical here in this screenshot, I'm just describing what does it look like. So you can search in this vertical just like any other search verticals, and it's going to show you all the search results from that external application of all the items which are indexed by that search connector are going to be shown in this vertical using keywords that you are actually entering in here. And this particular example, I've just put asterisk, so it's listing all the stories in the Story Hub. But if you select any specific keyword, it will make sure that that keyword is part of any of the managed properties which are part of the stories. So these stories from the Story Hub, you can see they are represented as cards, and these are adaptive cards. If you haven't used them, do have a look. It's all JSON based, and you can actually customize the way the search results are appearing in here using adaptive cards JSON syntax. There's a very nice adaptive card designer as well. It's a browser-based interface. You can drag and drop, put your elements, bind it to specific elements in your schema and your managed properties, and that's simply it. So you can see in this example, I have actually been showing some of the summary tag, also showing some of the images which are actually hosted in the outside system. I'm just using a URL here, the managed property. And also this title is linked up with the actual URL of the story. This is once again another managed property that I'm using as a hyperlink, so that when you click on this, you can actually go on to the specific user stories, and the overall search experience is very, very natural. So I'll just actually show you live how does it look like. So, yeah. So actually we already have this page open. So if you go to stories, there are 3 user stories in here right now. But if I want to change the search criteria, I can do that. For example, if I'm searching for red energy, or for example, if I am searching for guest. So these are the different keywords which are actually part of all the managed properties which are indexed with this. And so if you click on this, it will take you the actual story in the story hub, which actually talks about it. Now it's asking me for the authentication, but once I'm authorized, it is actually going to show me the story for this particular item. So there is a lot you can do here, not just the keywords. And let me quickly go back to my presentation. As I said, you can use keyword search. That's very simple. You can do wildcard searches using star, and you can do the keyword query language syntax as well. So as I said, all these items in this external connector index, they have managed properties. They have several managed properties. So they have a managed property called location. They have another managed property called customer name. There is another managed property called capabilities. So you can even use the KQL search syntax to search not only just by the keywords, but also do a very structured search using the KQL syntax. That is name of the property colon the value of the property, and you can put ands and ors and whatever syntax that KQL offers you. You can use exactly the same syntax to search across these items which are coming from the external data source. It is no different from any other items which are present in the search results. Same KQL index, KQL syntax applies over there as well. So how do we build a new search connector? There is a step-by-step process, and I'll quickly demonstrate you how do you go about creating your own custom search connector for Microsoft Search using the same example that I just talked about. So how do you create connectors and how does it all work behind the scenes? We start with we start with the first step where we need to have appropriate permissions. So there are two permissions we need to have, the two roles. We need to have search admin and search editor roles in Office 365. And these roles need to be allocated to the user, which will be, doing all these configurations as you will see in the later steps. The next step is, of course, we need to call Graph APIs, the search API, the Microsoft Search API in Graph. But of course, in order to call those APIs, you need to be authenticated first, and that's why we need to register an app in Azure AD with the following permissions. There are two permissions we need to allocate. One is external item.read.all and external item.read.write.all. These two permissions, one of them is a delegated permission and one is an application permission. So these two permissions need to be allocated and granted before we actually go on continue with the next steps. These two are actually prerequisites, the first two steps. Once these are done, we can go on to the next steps, calling these graph APIs. So there are three graph APIs calls that you can see here. So the first call that we need to do is for creating an external connection. I'm just abbreviating. So this is a post request that you send, and the URL is like http://graph.microsoft.com/beta, since it's in beta, /external/connections, and you put a payload in the body where you specify what is the name of this external connection. And once that external connection is created, you move on to the next step. Before we move on to the next step, I want to show you how this post request looks like. If you want to do it through Postman, of course you can do it. You can automate all this and build a separate client for doing all that. But I did this using Postman, and I will simply show you how it looks like in Postman. This is create external connection. This is the same API call that we were talking about here, graph/external connections. And here you will see we are calling this API. It's a post request, and in the body, we are passing in the ID of the external connection that we are going to create, the name, the display name of the external connection, and our description, a short description, and that's really it. This is all you need to do. Before you call this API, of course, you need to be authenticated. You need to have appropriate token, and that will go in the header and so on in the authorization. The app access token you need to get. Or this is just like calling any other graph API. So if you have called graph API before, you know how do we need to authenticate them. So first you are authenticated, you need to pass it to the authentication token, and the rest of the thing is very simple. So the next step is we need to call another graph API, which is actually a search API, and this is once again a post request where we call http graph microsoft.com/beta/external/connections /connection name, and this is where we will put the actual name of the connection we created. And as you remember, we created the name of the connection is story hub, so story hub in here /schema, and I'll just show you how this looks like. So what we are doing essentially in this step is we've already created an external connection. Now what we don't want to do is we want to specify, okay, what are the different managed properties which are part of this external connection, which are the properties associated with it, customer name, story URL, thumbnail image, and whatever we saw in the search results. These were all external managed properties. So we need to define all those managed properties using which the items in this external connection can be searched. So how do we do that? It's very simple. I'll go back here, and this is another post call where we just specify the ID of the external connection /schema. This is the call, and in the body we need to specify the schema of this external connection. So one thing we need to do is that, as you can see, this is a base type we need to specify, and then the properties. And you will see a lot of different properties in here. So one property is ID, another property is a URL, whether or not this story has an image, what is the thumbnail URL for this image, for this story, what is the title for this story, what is the customer name for this story, what's the phase of this project, what's the visibility, which state, was it done by New South Wales, was it done by Victoria, what was the total contract value in dollars, what's the background, it's a string, it's a long paragraph, what was the problem statement, what's the impact, and so on. So these are all really the managed properties we are creating. We are creating a schema for this particular external data source, and with each managed property that we are creating, we also define some properties like what is the data type, is this queryable, is this searchable, is this retrievable. This is pretty much the same as what you do with the managed properties in SharePoint search. This is exactly the same. So this has to be passed in the body when you are issuing this call. And once this is done, you have successfully registered the schema for your new external connection that you just created. And that's really it. Once you have created a new external connection, you have assigned a schema for that external connection, you have actually done the major part. And now what you need to do is that your external connection is ready, and you will actually go and see that in Microsoft Search. So for example, if I jump back to my browser window, yeah, so if I go to Admin Center, so if you go to the Admin Center, if you expand Show All, if you go to Settings, you will see a new option called Microsoft Search. And as I said, you need to have search admin and search editor roles in order to see this option. Otherwise, you're not going to see everything here. So once you have actually so once you have call the graph APIs to create a new connection and register a schema, you will see it will be appearing as a connector here. And the only thing is that this external connection right now will not have, at this stage, it will not have any items. You will see the story hub connection. This is an external connection we've created, and it has currently 3 items in the index, as you would have noticed from the last demo. Initially, when we do just the 2 call that I just discussed right now, when we create external connection schema at that point of time, it will not have any items. So you'll have to populate this external schema, so that you can actually search for these items. How do we do that? For each item that you need to add to the story hub external connection, you have to call this graph API. So for example, if you have to add 3 items in the index, you have to call this API 3 times. So this is where this is the part where indexing is happening. So your external connection is doing the indexing here, adding items to the search index so that they can be searched through all the Microsoft Search clients. It's a put request, the same HTTP graph microsoft.com/beta/external /connection. Here we put the name of the actual connection, which is story hub /items, and there we need to specify a unique item ID, any unique item ID that you want to assign to that particular item that you are adding to the search index. So I'll just quickly show you how does it look like in Postman. So this is how we create an external item. So as you can see, I will assign a unique ID to it. It could be any combination of letters and numbers. And then in here, we are actually defining, of course, the data type is external item. Then we are also defining the access control list, like who will have permissions to view this. So we can actually do the security training by defining permissions on the items we are adding. So just know that we are adding one item here whose ID is str003, and this is granted to everyone. So everyone in the company will be able to search this. But if you want to deny, you can add multiple permissions under the ACL and add all the permission rules that this has to be granted to a specific Active Directory group or to a user, or you can deny a particular user group. All sorts of rules you can put in this ACL array. And then comes the part where we actually put in the values of all the items in this. So we are adding a new search story. We are adding a new story to the story hub external connector. We are defining, okay, this is a unique ID, this is a URL, all the managed property that we defined in the schema. Here we need to pass the values for those. As you can see here, we're defining all the values. Actually, we can define not just the single value, but there could be multiple values as well, like this one. This one is an array because we have a concept of multi-valued items in SharePoint. You know about that. So we can incorporate arrays to solve that problem. So this is a user story. This is a story, a success story that we are adding to the graph by calling this API, this one. I just wanted to show you exactly some more examples. So I'm just showing you here in my notepad so that you can see it clearly. So this is one item that we added. This is the user story that we added for a customer called Icon Energy. There's another we added for Red Energy, and another one we called for AdShell. So there are different customers, and we have taken this payload and called this API 3 times so that these items are added to our external connection. Once this is done, and you know that this is an ongoing process, indexing happens all the time. You might have more items down the line after 10 days. So you will have to do some kind of automated process where you can actually find out the new items and then add them to the search index using this API call, this third API call. It has to be repeated frequently, so that the items in the index are in sync with the actual items which are present in the third-party system. Once this is done, the next step is you have to set up a new search vertical and result types. So how do we do that? This is the last step. So we go back to, yeah. So this is an external connection, and you can see we have, sorry for that. So we have, this is actually each connector is associated with such verticals and result types. And as you can see here, we have defined the search verticals here. So at this point of time, after doing all these steps that I showed you so far, you will not see this vertical here unless you create the search verticals and result types, which is the last step I talked about. So you have to add a new search vertical, and this is how you do it. You go here and select the verticals option and define a new search verticals. So I've created a new search vertical called stories, and that's why you see stories in here. So the way we define it is, it's a pretty simple wizard. I can run you through it. You define the name of the vertical, you specify a data source, the content source, and I said this vertical is associated with the external connector that we created just now. And then we can actually write a KQL query syntax to limit the search results. We might not want all the items in the external connectors to be visible here, but I've just left that empty because I wanted everything in the index to be here. I'm not putting in any criteria, and that's it. So once you have added a vertical, you also have to add result types. So here you can actually manipulate and show different items in the search index in different ways. So as you saw here, if you go back to search results, you will notice the layout of this is different from the other two. That's because this story didn't have a thumbnail image and this one has thumbnail images. So you can create two different result types for two different kinds of layouts. And not just layout, you can actually define condition like if there is no image, show it like this, and if there is an image, show it like that. So how do we do that? We need to define result types. So I have created two result types, one a story with a thumbnail and another for a story without a thumbnail. So the way we do it is, I'll just take you through an example. Story with thumbnail, it's the name of the result type. We connect it to a connector, of course, this is important. And the next step is you define the condition, like apply this result type only when thumbnails contains HTTP. It means when thumbnail is not empty. And then if the thumbnail is not empty, this is how we should present the search result. This is the adaptive card. This is a JSON-based adaptive card that you see here that actually controls the way your search results are rendered. And this is pure JSON, but there's a very nice designer here available, which you can use to choose any of the available templates or create something from scratch. For example, if I want to use that, I can select this and I can simply, do drag and drop from here, or I can simply do modifications from here as well, directly using JSON and see what is happening in here. And you can see that each item is actually associated with certain item from the managed property. So this is very simple. If you're not familiar with this, you can just have a look, play around. It's very simple to do. The result is you will have this kind of JSON, which you can use to format the search results. And that's really it. Once you have defined the verticals, you have defined the search result, the result types, and that's really it. You're ready. You will actually see a new vertical in here, and you can start searching items from there. One more thing that I wanted to show you. is it's not directly relevant, but since we are here already, and I think it's very useful. If you go here, you will find some more options like acronyms, and this is really powerful. I've just added only one acronym, but the thing is, each idea is each company has its own lingo, its own abbreviations and jargons. You might want to define a kind of dictionary that of abbreviation and acronym that you use in your company. That they might not be publicly available on the internet because every company is different. So you might want to define those kind of lingos. For example, here in the Telstra Purple, we use the term SOW, which is a statement of work, but someone new might not be aware of what SOW is. So you can define an acronym SOW and give a definition what SOW is. So the thing is, once you define an acronym, and if you go here and, for example, if you go here and search define SCCM, you'll get a definition for what an SCCM is. In fact, here as well. And also not only here, but if you go in SharePoint search, SCCM, yeah, you'll get the full definition of what is SCCM. Okay, as simple as that. So you can populate some definitions here, which will be really handy. So these are the admin curated results that I was talking about in one of the slides earlier on. Another thing which is useful is bookmarks. Here you have already, I haven't added these were there by default. So the thing is, you might have some applications in your company and people might not know where they are actually. They might not know the URL of those applications, but they just know, okay, this is SharePoint or this is Yammer or this is Flow. But what is the URL? How do I reach to that application? You can actually define the bookmarks. For example, if I go here and search for Flow, I'm going to get bookmarks as a result, and I can just simply click that and go to Flow. Or for example, if someone, maybe a better example is, sorry, hang on. Yeah. So for example, if you're putting in Yammer, oh, there you go. So this is very useful. You can create more such items in this bookmarks list, and it's going to be really useful if someone wants to know where a particular application is. Another thing, and there are lots of other things, but just one more last thing that I wanted to show was the Q&A. So for example, if someone new has joined the company and wants to know what is the company leave policy, you can actually define question and answers. Give it a title, give it a long answer, put any URL which describes where the details of this, and you can actually see we have defined URL to a page which has more details and a very quick answer to this question. So these are frequently asked kind of question that anyone who has recently joined their company might be looking for answers. So for example, if I just type leave policy, there you go. I don't have to actually put in the exact words, what is the leave policy? Or if you prefer to go into Bing, what is I simply, but yeah, no, maybe something wrong here, but the idea is simple. You can actually use these keywords, use question and answers, and facilitate admin curated results, which you can display to your users. That's really powerful. Coming back to our agenda, there's one last thing that I want to talk about here.
We're overrunning, Faisal. If you want to wrap it up, that would be awesome.
Yeah. sorry. So this preview has certain limitations that you might want to be aware about. First of all, this is a preview. This is not GA yet. So some of the limitations very quick. You can only index 4 items per second. There is no support for schema update. So once you have created a schema, you cannot update it. And so you have to be very careful. We might not have this limitation after GA, but this is a limitation right now, unfortunately. Index content only shows up in the search results under a custom vertical. So the stories I just showed you, you cannot search them through all tab. You can only search them through the stories tab. Any connection you set up during the preview might need to be deleted and recreated. That's a given. That happens all the time for the preview things, since it is in preview, so that's expected. There's the connection limit. You cannot go beyond 10 custom connections. You cannot go beyond 200,000 items in the index right now. And yeah, and rest of the simple content connected content can only be searched on custom verticals. We've already talked about it. And connected content from one connection cannot be displayed. Yeah, we've already talked about this as well. Just a few more things. That search API, these are the limitations of the search API itself. Some of them we've already seen. Just have a quick look. We have the most important for me is that the third from the last is you can not have an external entity which is more than 4 MB, and we have a capacity limit of 700,000 items of data. That's really important to note. That's about it really. If you have any question, I'll be glad to take those now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Faisal. Just a few questions in the Q&A. I'll tackle them in order. The first question is around Microsoft Search and Delve. The question is, are they using the same foundations? Will the customizations, I suppose, like new verticals and things like that, will they also appear in Delve? I mean, what's the future of Delve really with the investment here in search?
Yeah, look, this is something which I have been also trying to figure out. There seems to be no documentation around Microsoft roadmap of Delve. I was looking the other day about what are the roadmaps for different areas in Office 365 which Microsoft is investing.
Yeah, I think Project Cortex is probably going to shake it up quite a bit. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I guess this is the direction, and Microsoft seems to be focusing that make search available, make it omnipresent, make it available everywhere, so that you don't have to go to a.
But as it stands, you can't customize Delve, right? In this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The next question is around. Look, I'll ask it here, but I think it's more about Office apps. But when you search for functions in apps, like toolbar functions. I guess just taking that question and extending a little bit, could that kind of capability be brought into Microsoft Search at all?
So the idea is that the kind of search that you see in your Office client applications, you searching for actions and commands. This is Microsoft Search. So Microsoft Search is not just, it's a very broad term which Microsoft is giving to all kind of search experiences that you see in the client applications, as well as on the Office on the mobile and Office on the web. So the actions that you see are specific for Office client applications, and they're not available in Office 365 portal in general. Does that answer your question?
Look, I think so. I think it was more around, frustration with having to go to the search all the time without actually knowing where some of these things are.
Yeah.
The next,
I think the bookmarks could be a good answer for these kinds of queries. So for example,
quick launch icons. Yeah. The next one is it talks about integration. So, for example, if you're using something like ServiceNow, if you're surfacing, information from ServiceNow in Microsoft Search. And I think you touched on this.
Yep.
How does search control what's relevant for particular users?
Yeah, so if you can see, if you just go back to my last slide, the result ranking is best effort. So of course, it tries to find the keywords which are relevant to you, but in fact, I don't think
yeah, it's more about relevance to a person. So
Exactly.
so there must be some kind of weighting to say, based on this person's activity and what we know about them in the graph, here's a result that is more pertinent to this person than it might be for somebody else based on the same keyword, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm yet to test that. It's kind of a black box, of course. So
Yeah.
I'll have to see how it really works out. I'll have to see and test whether or not it actually corresponds. The items you see coming from ServiceNow, are they really related to the documents you might be working on?
So when you are integrating with things like ServiceNow, a counterpart record or footprint is created in the graph for each ServiceNow record, right? You're essentially seeding them into the graph when you index. So does that mean that content can now have a relevance weighting in the same way, machine learning can calculate it, but is it capable therefore of having the same relevance metadata as say Office documents and conversations and other things that are native to Office 365?
Yeah, I do expect that, although I don't have any experience, I haven't really tested it that way, but I do expect it, because the idea is that once all these items are going into the graph, graph can form all sorts of connections, create linkages between the things which are relevant, no matter where they're sitting. So I do expect that, but I haven't really tested it.
All right, now that's awesome. So thank you very much to anybody who asked a question in the forum there. Thank you so much for attending the meetup. We're trying our best with the virtual setup. And what we'll do after this is put the recording onto our YouTube channel. We'll post a link to that in the meetup. In the meantime, stay put or stay tuned rather for notifications about what we're going to do next month. My thoughts lean more towards Power Platform for next month's activity, but once again, we really appreciate those people who physically attend these live streams and ask questions. And we hope to see you next month. Thank you so much, Faisal, for your time. First time for you at the meetup, but I think you did really well, so really appreciate it, and I'm sure the community does as well. Thanks once again. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you, everybody. Take care.